This
budget.
conference will now be recorded.
Hi, Commissioner Thompson. This is Andy. I'm having a little trouble getting into the computer version, but I can call the meeting to order anyway.
We know your voice. We have built in voice recognition system. Kelly Stiles, if you mute, maybe we won't have that problem. Or Tita, maybe if you mute.
What?
I believe that's Andy, who's maybe has his computer close to his phone, getting that feedback.
Teresa, you're turned into our maven. Thank you. So Budget Chair Davis, are you available? Are you functional at this point from a technological sense? Hearing nothing, I'll assume that the answer is no and give you a little more time to get things in working order. Commissioner Aquila has a conflict with his work, and so he said he would join us as soon as he's able. Well, this is an interesting situation, isn't it? So the chair of the Budget Committee has technological difficulties. The vice chair of the Budget Committee is unavailable. I don't know that we've ever had a situation quite like this before.
I don't recall one, and I defer to County Council if you might be able to step in the role and so that we can get things kicked off. Do you see an objection to that, Joanna?
I think that sounds like a good plan. I want to make sure we have a quorum first.
I saw that Commissioner Bangs is here, Commissioner Toyoka is here, I'm here, that's 3. Commissioner Webb is here, that's 4. Committee member Montero is here.
You do. I count a quorum.
See, I'm counting on my fingers. Good, thank you. You're faster than my fingers. All right, so we have a quorum present. Rather than delay any further, let's call the meeting of the Clatsop County Budget Committee. I assume that's our official title right now, to order at 1:04 p.m. This is the 13th of May, 2021. Mr. Davis, are you prepared to join in now? I see a green mic with your name beside it, so I'm hopeful I can turn this over to you. Hearing nothing. Assistant County Manager Steele, would you then proceed to give us your update, and we'll look for Mr. Davis to continue his efforts to join us, because I'm sure he wants to resume his appropriate role, and I'm eager to have him do that. Thank you.
So I wanted to follow up. There was a question by Budget Committee Chair Davis regarding the utilities in the household hazardous waste facility. Excuse me. And so in the 1920 fiscal year, that was when we had started or finished up with construction of the household hazardous waste facility. And so there was 2,843 is showing as prior year expenses for utilities. And those utilities include propane, power, water, and sewer. And then there is nothing in the 2021 year budget. That was an oversight, but there have been utility expenditures. And at this point in time, they're projecting that those utility expenditures will finish up this fiscal year of 2021 at an amount of approximately $4,200. So in the 21-22 fiscal year budget, they are appropriating $5,000 for those utilities. Right now, the utility costs, the building usage is getting used more frequently because it is a site that they used for the drive-through testing facility as well. So if there are no other questions, then we would proceed with page 486 of the for the fair budget.
I think that's best. Let's go forward.
Okay. Get to that page. So with the fair budget, there are no major changes in this budget. They have, as you are all aware, been impacted by not being able to host a fair in 2020, but they did still receive their state fair support in the amount of $53,000. They are also seeing an increase because the passage of the property tax levy increasing from 5 cents per thousand to 7 cents per thousand. So they are anticipating an increase in revenue by approximately $145,000. The fair did also receive some CARES funding through the county in an effort to make improvements to their restroom facilities, as well as they have the large expo center meeting space, and then a few years ago they built a smaller hall, and they were able to finish that hall, like the walls indoors, to make it more appropriate for a smaller meeting space, but still larger than some people might be able to host within their own office spaces. So that way they could be an option for people who might want to have gatherings for meetings in a more socially distanced format, but not so large that they're in the expo hall. So they are budgeting in anticipation for hosting a 2021 fair, and that is still conversations that the fair board is having. And so are there any questions on the fair budget? Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. Well, it's a comment, really, not a question. I want to commend the Fair Board staff and their farsightedness, their responsiveness, filling the need that we had as a community in a catastrophic situation. Because, you know, this pandemic has been catastrophic. Your support, your assistance to make things work for the people of Clatsop County and their critters has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
I will also comment that John probably just helped finish up with Margot in regards to an event hosted out there yet again today. So
today's actually starts at 4 o'clock today, but yeah, and then we have another one on Saturday. So yeah, we have definitely learned that there's still a lot of things we can do for the community out here when they're not necessarily all good times, but we are definitely here for the bad times as well.
A community institution evolves and continues in the present and the future. Good job.
I just wanted to follow up with a long distance high five also, because having been able to sit in a couple meetings and see the foresight that they have used in this process, while also trying to keep our young kids involved with their movie nights and installation of touch-free bathrooms, I would have to say that I'm really impressed, and I've really enjoyed our meetings, and gonna get my butt to the next one, that's for sure. So anyhow, but John, thank you. You're doing an amazing job.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
So if there are no other questions or comments, I see Chair Davis is now with us, and the next section we will be moving to is page 310, the general government section, to go over the Board of Commissioners budget.
Sounds good. Thank you, Monica. Sorry, folks, I had some technical difficulties getting in today, but I appreciate you getting started. You can take it away when you're ready, though, Monica.
Okay, so there are no major changes in this budget other than there is a reduction in the medical insurance line item, and that is based on prior year usage and the forecasting moving forward. And I will defer to County Manager Boone to discuss the commissioner's stipends.
Chair Davis, members of the Budget Committee, just a little review of what occurred last year, where we provided a framework for the board stipends. It's a methodology that our intention was to repeat every year, so that the lay budget committee members had a process to fall back on regarding the board stipends. And so what was created was a really geographic-based model that accounted for distance as part of the stipend amounts. And so based upon distance and based upon an estimated number of meetings attended, both in district and out of district, and then the taxability factor and the IRS factor, we came to some numbers, and the stipend amounts for the current fiscal year, which we would recommend for the 21-22 fiscal year also, because of that we haven't seen changes that would justify an increase, because the IRS tax rates have not gone up. And we would recommend a district commissioner stipend, monthly stipend of $1,178.13 for the A1 geographic area, which is the closer geographic area. And then for the A2 geographic area, it would be $1,377, which is the current amounts. And then the board chair receives an additional stipend of $225 a month. So our recommendation would be that we continue with that methodological framework that we established last year for the 21-22 board stipend. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
County Manager, is that stipend that you've just described, is that the amount that is lined out for $128,660 total in the presented budget? Is that correct?
Chair Davis, I'm going to have Monica look at that, and she can tell me for certain.
I'm just looking at page 311, and I want to make sure that we get if we have a motion on this, that we get an accurate amount. And Monica, you're muted, FYI.
Thank you. Sorry about that. The commissioner's stipend is on page 312, and it's line item 82-2931 in the amount of $75,780. The line item that you're looking at,
Okay.
the $128,000, that's total expenditures for their budget as a whole.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. So I want to describe here, and either county manager or assistant county manager, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but and I'm describing this in part for myself and in part for new members of the lay committee. So this process is up to the lay committee members like this sheriff or the attorney, or no, not attorney general, district attorney. where we set the compensation or agree to the compensation for the county commissioners. This is only a vote of the lay members, and one of the lay members should make a motion to how much to approve. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair Davis, this is Don. Correct. It's the county charter that provides for the process for establishing the board stipend. So, and the charter dictates that the 5 lay board members vote for the stipend amount. So,
okay, thank you, County Manager. And it looks to me like we have 4 of the members, as noted yesterday. Norm was unable to join us today, so but I see four of us from the lay budget committee members on right now: Danelle, myself, Gretchen, and I saw Tita. Yeah, Tita. Okay. Commissioner Banks, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just had a question for Monica. Are we then scrapping the health benefits for the county commissioners, correct?
There is still an amount budgeted for 13,630. And that is just should anything change for any of the board that might wish to participate in health benefits. It's based a CIS rule, sorry, that we do allow the board to get our medical benefits at least 50% of the premium.
Okay, I was just curious as to why there was still, funds there. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and that's a board decision through this budget process.
So what I'd be looking for at the moment would be either a motion from a lay budget committee member to approve the budget for the county board of commissioners per diem line item, or to suggest something else.
I have a question.
Allen? Sure.
I have a question first. So when you say, Monica, are you saying that the board votes on the health stipend, that it's actually not in the charter? I'm a little confused by your answer there.
I apologize. So the CIS states that the board is allowed to participate in our medical benefits program with at least a 50% coverage. When I say it's the board's decision, I apologize, it's the budget committee's decision in regards to if you want to budget for anything in there, or if a board member chooses to participate in our medical benefits program come October of 2021, when open enrollment is, then we would have to make a budget adjustment. Does that make sense?
If I could just clarify real quickly also, this is Don, Chair Davis. The charter does not address benefits, and so the charter only basically says that the board will not receive a salary, and so they receive a stipend, and the lay members establish the stipend. So it does not address healthcare benefits, medical benefits.
Okay, sorry, I got kicked off there. I have to be on my phone for this. So I missed some of that, but so you're saying it's not in the charter, that the lay people don't have any control or say on the health benefits. They're just there if they want them, which is why it's in the budget. However, the stipend is what the lay people are looking at. I'm curious why it's so low, the amount of time that they actually put in. I'm shocked comparatively how low it is. And the health benefits, that was surprising to me, because that would be something that not everybody would participate in or be available to, because it's kind of individual to you. So I guess that's where I'm still a little bit, so the lay people have nothing to do with the health benefits. They can get that regardless. It's just part of the charter.
The health benefits aren't part of the charter. The health benefits are a CIS rule.
Oh, okay, it's the
CIS
rule.
is our insurance provider, yeah. And so CIS states that should an elected board member choose to receive medical benefits, then they are allowed to, and that the county has to cover at least 50% of the premium.
Okay, so, so there's not,
Can I share my concern about that? Can you hear me?
I
I
can,
can't-
but I think that Gretchen
can't-
got cut off. I apologize.
Yeah,
Oh, Gretchen.
Tita, let's see if we can, Gretchen, we lost part of your comment there. You were on mute briefly.
yeah,
wanna make
sorry,
sure.
I'm trying to finish tax season too. I guess what I'm wondering is why would we not want to bump what they make and let them deal with health insurance on their own, which seems much more sensible to me, because it almost seems discriminatory to say, well, we're going to offer this health insurance. Well, not everybody needs that, but yet they all have to put in the same amount of time. It just seems discriminatory. So that was kind of what I was thinking is rather than that, I'd rather see those benefits or those dollars go back into additional stipend. But if we can't control that, then it is what it is. But
Member Montero.
Yes, I'm agreeing with what Gretchen is saying, because by paying for health benefits for those who want it and those who don't need it don't get it, basically we are discriminating against, we're not paying our commissioners equitably. It means that the commissioners that get the health insurance are actually being paid more because they're getting a benefit that the commissioners who don't need that benefit aren't getting. So I would like for us to find a different way to do that. Either you pay the commissioners who don't choose to get the health benefit or don't need to get the health benefit, you pay them the value of that health benefit so that they're on the same footing with those who get the health benefit, or you do what Gretchen is suggesting, and that is that you bump it up for everybody, and then those who need to purchase health benefits purchase the health benefit. And they can do that in the same way, having it taken out of however the deduction is made by the county for the health benefit. But I'm really concerned. I do know that our commissioners work long and hard, and I'm really concerned that they're not being reimbursed, compensated, etc., in an equitable fashion.
I agree, and I also think that if you want to have people in those positions, you're not going to attract people if you keep it so low or keep it discriminatory, because I mean, I just think, is there a way we can raise that stipend somehow? Because I think it would also in the future attract people to the positions.
Chair Davis, if I could weigh in a little bit here.
Of course.
This is Don. So compensation for the board can get to be a fairly complex issue because we get into some of the fundamental underpinnings of the charter. And so there, the Clatsop County Charter is fairly unique in a number of facets. And one is that it states that the county commissioner shall serve without salary. And that doesn't mean that they can't have a stipend that does reflect some of the work, but there was a decision by the Charter Review Committee back in time and of the voters to basically establish this. What I would say is that right now we don't have any commissioners who are receiving medical benefits from the county. So I would suggest that staff can work at these issues between now And when open enrollment starts, not that I'm aware of any commissioners that will be looking for any medical benefits, but we can take another look at that. But we would need to have it framed by Joanna's legal advice too, on kind of what the box is that we're working at, given what the charter language is. So I would just suggest that let us take another look at that, and then we can come back to the budget committee and the board and have a conversation about whether the path forward is a charter review committee or if it's just a further adjustment to the stipend.
And who makes the CIS rule that they receive the health insurance? Because it's not in the charter, it's a CIS rule is what I understand.
And that would be CIS, that's part of their plan documents.
Don, could you define CIS for members who might not
Oh,
know?
it's city county information. I mean, insurance. So.
Thank you.
You know, what I don't understand about that is they don't have that rule for the city of Seaside. So I'm not understanding why they would have that rule for a county and not a city, because they do the services for both. But I do have another question, and that is, so when was our last charter review?
It was approximately 4 years ago, I think.
Okay.
I don't believe that the last charter review made any recommendations. Is that correct?
That's
That is
correct.
So maybe that is a pathway to go, is charter review. I know I'm heading up the charter review for the city of Seaside. So, and I know it's a complex process, but it does need to be done periodically.
Yeah, so the county charter outlines a charter review process every 10 years, but certainly it can happen more frequently at the direction of the board. So.
Great.
Welcome, Commissioner Aquila. Thank you for joining us. Just to bring you up to date, we're on page, I guess it's 310, discussing the Board of Commissioners stipend at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I don't necessarily have, I don't feel that I can, and I may not be able to make a motion on this. So I'll just remind the lay members that we'd want to make a motion to set stipend level. But I'll also say, especially Member Allen and Member Montero voiced some concern about the equitability of the insurance setting. And I think my recollection anyway was when that decision to push funds in that direction went through, it was more or less a balancing act between the other element that you're talking about, which is commissioners not getting compensated very much, and that being a barrier to entry for some people in the county to serve as a commissioner. And that was that the insurance aspect was a way for the lay members or the county to help out some members who might be challenged in a different economic aspect so that they could continue serving if they didn't have insurance. I leave it up to you whether that's the right decision or not, but I think that was the debate at the time, was whether or not it was going to help people continue to serve by helping them with their insurance. Member Davis?
I have a question on why is there a discrepancy between commissioners on stipend? Why are some commissioners receiving a higher stipend than others?
So that was part of the methodology that we introduced last year to account for geography. We have a commissioner right now, Commissioner District 5, that lives on the extreme end of the South County. And so just to participate in the same number of meetings, whether they are in district or they're out of district, just requires more travel. And so in district travel or in-county travel is covered by this stipend. So we wanted to recognize that there are some commissioners, if they're living, you know, what we basically took was about 25 miles from the courthouse. And we said, if anybody lives beyond that, that we were going to give them a little bit more stipend for their additional travel.
But now we're doing things over Zoom mostly. Does that still
This is
apply?
temporary. We are going back to regular board meetings fairly
Okay.
soon. So, and what I would also say is that even though the board hasn't been traveling as much, I would argue they're probably spending more time on county business during the pandemic, just because of all the demand.
Right,
So-
but shouldn't that warrant evening the playing field for the stipend?
Well, this is stipend for next year, and so, you know, we're going to be back, hopefully back to our normal board meeting pattern, which is in person. So
Yeah,
effective July 1st, we'll be back.
So you expect to have meetings in person by July 1st?
That is a date that we're using where we'll probably go to a hybrid model, still providing the option for the public to participate remotely, but also provide the opportunity for the public and the board to also meet. So July is the goal. We'll see if that.
if you're providing a hybrid option,
Yeah.
the commissioners that live further out could participate via Zoom, therefore not traveling as much.
Well, what I would say is that this is not a reimbursement system. This is a stipend system. So we make general assumptions for the stipend. And what we do know is that no one's going to travel exactly the amount that the stipend covers. Some may drive more, some may drive less, but it's just a means to have a methodology for the stipend so that we can explain it to the public and explain it to the board and explain it to the budget committee, but it's still a target. It's not a reimbursement. So.
And I would just add to that, that while the Board of Commissioners in the county for our public meetings are looking at moving to a hybrid model, that doesn't mean that all the meetings that they participate in as liaisons will be offering that. And so as far as returning to in-person meetings for all of their liaison appointments or legislative or AOC meetings that take place in other areas as well.
I don't know, I guess I mean, I appreciate the explanations. I don't know that paying commissioners doing the same job for the same, I don't know if that would hold up to me. It seems like paying commissioners different wages for the same job is a problem. And there's an inherent problem there.
Well, what I would say is that we have to go back to the charter, and it basically says that they are not compensated. So this is not compensation, this is a stipend. And so the charter does not provide for compensation. So all the wage equity laws, even though we should be sensitive to equity, certainly, you know, this is a way that the charter provides for just reimbursing the board for their in-county travel without it being on a reimbursement basis. Their out-of-county travel is on a reimbursement basis, but their in-county travel isn't. And so this is the method that we have established to just reimburse them for their in-county time and travel. So
Speaking to what Monica said, though, if they're doing their liaison travel, isn't that within their district typically, where each of them would be in their respective areas? So why would that create a higher level or a higher need? Is it mainly that they're traveling so far to come to the meetings? I guess I'm not understanding why, Monica, that methodology you were using.
Many of the meetings as liaison appointments take place in the Astoria area because they're participating in groups that are either where the county seat is, because that's where a lot of social services are provided, or in some instances, there are other like planning commission meetings that they're coming up here for. So there's a variety of meetings that take place outside of their district.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Member Montero.
Yes, so I think one of the things we're looking at is the differences between a stipend that is standard and then the costs to be reimbursed that are variable. And the travel, no matter where you are in the county, is going to vary from commissioner to commissioner based on where they live and where they have to travel to. So maybe what needs to happen is, again, going back to that charter review, that you establish a basic stipend that's just a basic stipend, and then the travel or any other thing that is determined to be a variable would then be paid in a reimbursement basis, just like travel outside the county is reimbursed, travel inside the county could be on a reimbursement basis. It's a little more work, but I think ultimately it probably is more fair.
I think that's a valid enough point, Member Montero, but as Manager Boone suggested, the current charter is specific about what we can do in this regard. So I think the county has tried to come up with a system that seems to address the problem, though maybe imperfectly because of the
Well,
limits
and
they have.
I think too, we have to be careful not to burden them additionally administratively. Because if you're talking about a couple $100s a month, is that really worth the administrative burden when they're already working very hard? So I think that maybe a review or the charter review, if somebody, you know, if that's what it takes, then maybe that process should be started or something to review it.
Monica.
So did I understand earlier then that you are not expecting to be using the $13,630 in personnel benefits for medical, because it does not appear that any of the commissioners will be asking for medical care or medical coverage?
I can't speak to that. I can only speak to right now, there are no commissioners who are participating in the medical benefits plan. I can't speak to what will happen come open enrollment time in regards to any of their situations. So there is some budgeted there.
I see.
Monica or Don, is it possible, can you, and Don, you may have said this earlier, can you remind us what the difference in the stipends is? Because my recollection is it's a pretty minor amount.
Sure, Chair Davis, members of the Budget Committee. For a district commissioner that is in the closer area, which is really most of the county, it would be $1,178.13 per month, which is the current amount. If you're in the A2, which is the further ring, it would be $1,377 per month.
Okay, thank you.
And then the board chair receives a $225 additional amount.
Okay, thank you, Don. So I'd be looking for a motion from the floor to either approve or change the amount suggested for the commissioner stipend from the lay committee members, if anyone would care to make a motion.
I'm going to stick my neck out there, and I'm going to go along with something I heard Gretchen say, and that is that we have commissioners that work very hard, and they have their fingers in a lot of pies. They're expected to know a lot of things. They're expected to be practically on call 24 hours a day. And so I am going to make a motion that we increase the base stipend to a flat $1,500 a month. And with the whatever proportional adjustment for the type 2 or the outside area that we already have. I hope that's clear.
Okay. So I've got a motion to for Member Montero to increase the base stipend to $1,500 per month for each commissioner, while retaining the proportional adjustment or increase for Zone 2 commissioners who live further out. Does that capture the motion, Tita?
Oh, Andy, you did it way better than me. Thank you.
Is there a second for that motion?
I would second that.
Okay.
Gretchen.
So I got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that from Danelle?
I just have a question. The with the motion on the floor, does that still include the $200 extra for the chair of the board? That was not mentioned.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think to mention that, but I wouldn't take that away, no.
Could you amend your motion, please?
Yes.
Wait, Tita, I might just suggest, Danelle, it may be cleaner for you to just make the motion to amend to include the 200, is it $200 or $250 stipend for the?
It's a 225, Chair.
225. Danelle, could you just make that motion to make it cleaner so we can have a amendment?
Sure, I move to amend the motion to include the chair received the 225 stipend bonus for occupying the seat of chair.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. So I have a motion and a second to amend to include a $225 stipend for the chair. Is there any objection to the motion to amend to include a $225 stipend for the chair? Okay, I don't hear any objection to that. So by unanimous consent, that's included. So we're back to the main motion, which is now that we would change the commissioner stipend to $1,500 and retain the proportional adjustment for the Zone 2 commissioners who live a bit further out. Plus, we would have a $225 stipend for the chair included. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Okay, let me just go to a vote then. Member Montero, how do you vote on the motion?
I vote aye.
Thank you. Member Davis, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye.
Member Allen, how do you vote on the motion?
Aye.
Okay, by a vote of 3-0, the motion passes. Monica, do you need any further action on that item from the lay committee members? And you're muted.
No, I'm just trying to make a mathematical adjustment so that way I have it in my notes for the end of the budget.
Okay,
meeting.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you, County Manager, for your advice and expertise on that item. So I think is the next item that we should cover County Manager on 339.
Unless there's anything further that you want to discuss on the Board of Commissioners budget.
Sure. Just checking. Any further comments on Board of Commissioners? I'll just say that I'm happy to have the stipend raised a little bit. I'm glad that we can support you all in the valuable work you do. Thank you. 339 is County Manager.
Okay, so the county manager budget reflects an increase in personnel services of approximately $125,000. And this is to add an additional staff person to help in regards to some of the strategic plan goals that the board has adopted. It will be adding an additional communications person. And then the FTE that we spoke of earlier, that was at a 0.8, and we are increasing to a full FTE. And then reallocating some of that employee's time is being allocated here, and that is for the management policy analyst position. And that position has been helping in a variety of areas as far as the strategic plan and looking for grant funding for various projects. Other than that, there's some increases for materials and services for the additional staff person for furniture, a desk, and equipment and such. Any questions?
Okay. Questions or comments on county manager? Commissioner Bangs.
And I just wanted to take a moment and make sure or reiterate that along in your whole list that you discussed here of the new goals or so on and so forth was the grant writing situation. And I know that I've had some discussions with county manager regarding a staff member taking over that role. And so that is within this, correct?
It is within the box. Her primary focus is not just grant writing. There's a variety of things, but as time allows, she's been helping us with many of these grant requests that have been coming from the Senate and the Congress and the state.
Could I request that she, I know that she's receiving training, but that we have a compartment for continuing education and regarding grant writing for her. I just know from personal experience that that is an ever-changing field, so.
We do have education and training budgeted, and she has been participating in grant writing training already, so yeah.
Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, I'm sorry to be kind of thick about this, but are we, I guess I don't see the addition of the total FTEs that I think I have heard being talked about. I assume because we talked about a public information specialist, and then we talked about a grant writing person, and then we talked about what I think is what Hannah Mather is doing now. So that sounds to me like 3 additional FTEs, and I'm not arguing with any of them. I would love to see 3 additional FTEs. Am I correct?
So it's an increase of 1.6 FTE. Hannah is currently an intern, and her position is through the end of June. And we will be advertising for a position that is a communications assistant position that she would hopefully apply for. But we are just asking for an additional 1.6 increase in the FTE here.
So what's the part? The
management policy analyst is the partial, and it's split with another department.
And go ahead.
The management policy analyst will be increasing her time in the county manager's budget and to 0.6, and then 0.4 of her time is in the mental health contracted work that's done there. And then we're also adding, it is listed as a community, where's it at? The administrative assistant position would be assisting with the communications piece of the FTE.
Chair Davis, if I.
Sure.
So what we are really doing is we're adding 1 communication person, which happens to be what Hannah's doing right now for us and doing a really good job. And then we already have a budget and policy analyst, or I'm not sure what the exact title is, but more of that position will be in the county manager's office. And part of that role is to help us with the grant writing and other pursuit of other funds. And then of course, both of them will be helping us with the strategic plan implementation at the same time. So that's really what we're focusing on, are those two pieces. One is additional grant writing and funding pursuit, and then the other is the communications.
I
Yeah,
guess I'm a little disappointed that we aren't being a little bit more robust about the communication piece. I think Hannah's done a wonderful job, but we have not always been terribly professional is the best word I can use, creative, imaginative about our public information efforts in the last couple of years. And I think that we need someone who is perhaps a real communications professional, someone who has training and experience in modern, very current communication techniques, and also in strategic planning for good public information. I was really hoping that that position would come with a lot more experience and expertise than we're talking about with this current proposal. And I'm, as I say, I have been disappointed at the performance of our public information staff, and I'd like to see it become more professional and more highly trained. I think we've had real problems communicating with our citizens during the past couple of years. I just think that we need greater sensitivity. I think the website has improved, but at the same time, it has become increasingly complex. When someone tells me that they put something on the website, but I go to search the website for it and can't find it, then to me that's a fail.
So Commissioner, if I may, rather than talking about the personnel matters, are you suggesting that additional staff be proposed in the budget, or are you wanting us to move forward with what we are proposing and see what we can do to improve the comments that you're making?
Well, I'm sorry to be commenting about personnel matters, but the way the county manager's office operates is, I believe, a matter for board input at least. And so I simply would like to see a more professional and effective public information program. And I think that the way to do that is to hire the appropriate people and to make sure that there are people who are experienced. Public information is not public relations. Public information is a very different skill set, and it requires unique capabilities at how to communicate with citizens, not consumers, but citizens, people who own the place. I just was hoping that we would be able to bring somebody in who could lend more experience to that job. I think it would be well worth the expense. I think that given the fact that the only staff that the Board of Commissioners has is the county manager and the county council. There are so many times when I'd love to have a staff assistant or someone to help me with minor things. Our clerk does a fabulous job of keeping me out of trouble in terms of arrangements for things, etc. But I just think that we need a more professional way of addressing our public information problem.
So again, I'm going to ask the question, and I have no objection if the board would like to discuss personnel matters during a board meeting or in an executive session. But in regards to what we're asking for in response to the budget and the budget committee's input, are you asking that we are requesting additional FTE, or are you okay with us moving forward and evaluating the type of personnel that we hire with the FTE that we're proposing?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of what you said.
Or are you okay with the FTE that we're proposing, and then based on the recruitment process, we'll determine the person that we hire, but maintaining the amount of FTE that we are currently proposing?
Well, I think it's the amount of money that is relevant to the budget. I think that.
So I think what Monica is seeking here is action in a direction to either suggest that we add more money or more FTE, or move on, with the note that this should be discussed at a future meeting. That's what I'm getting from Monica anyway. That if you want, if you want an additional person or a different person, that this is an appropriate time to suggest that, or that some of the rest of the discussion is better handled in another meeting.
Well, I think it's a matter of how much money we put in the budget. I'm sorry, Commissioner Thompson, am I wavering out of my lane?
Yes, I hear you and I share your concerns, but as the budget committee, we have a constrained capacity to act right now. And so let's either ask for more money or more staff with a note that we know we need to work on this as a team. But right now, right here in this budget committee, yes to this budget or suggest a change.
Okay, I have a motion then.
Sure.
Okay.
I'd like to move that we dedicate.
Tita Montero has a comment.
Commissioner Banks,
Webb, are you the chair? Who's the chair of this?
Hold up. Yep. Commissioner Banks, I see your hand and Tita's hand, but right now there's a motion on the floor as far as I know.
Not yet. I would like to move that we dedicate increased county resources to the development of staff to handle an improved public information program for the county.
So is that a motion for increased education and training, or is that a motion for increased staff?
It's a motion for increased staff, but it's up to the county manager who and how many people, et cetera, would be appropriate for that. But I think it's going to take more money than is in this budget.
Ultimately, we need from a budget committee, if you're recommending an additional FTE, that is the budget committee that's going to be making that recommendation. The county manager will help, and the county manager's office will help in the hiring process. But if you're suggesting increased FTE, that is something that the budget committee needs to direct us on to include in the budget.
Well, I'm looking, to me, it's not a matter of FTE. I mean, it's a matter of the amount of money that it takes to hire qualified staff and to implement a program. I think there are things we should be spending more money on in public information that are not directly staff related. To me,
if I can interject, the actions we're sort of constrained to take, though, have to do with either FTE or money. We're not a programmatic body. We can't.
I'm proposing more money. If
Okay,
I can interrupt, we don't have a second on this motion, so we really can't discuss it.
Member Montero, I don't even know what the motion is yet. So I'm trying to get clarity on that. can I ask also that the folks that are not talking can mute? I'm getting substantial feedback at the moment.
Well, I made a motion. Do I need to repeat it? Is that the issue?
If you can repeat it, sure, because I'm not sure what movement we would take with the motion that I heard.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be difficult. Essentially what I heard is a suggestion about what kind of program that the county manager's office would be moving forward with. But
that was my motion.
But I think that that's a motion outside of the scope of the budget process.
I guess I disagree with you, but if that's your ruling as the chair.
So if I may, when you're suggesting more money, we would need a dollar amount to place in there. And then if that increased dollar amount is for a more journey level position that we recruit for, or if that's for more programmatic, but we would need a dollar amount to increase the budget by.
Okay, let's increase the budget by $50,000.
Okay, so I have a motion to increase the county manager budget by $50,000. Do you want to address that to a line item?
Yes. Oh, well, the problem is that to me, these are not program issues. I mean, you know, I don't see a line item that is specific other than for the FTE. So I guess.
Well, again, if it's education and training to make a more robust position, then we can add it to the, okay, then we can add it to the personnel.
I don't think in all of our budget deliberations over the last 100 days, we have addressed the issue of what a programmatic responsibility needs to be. And I think that in most of the services that we provide to our citizens, we have a common understanding of what management of our fisheries is and what it looks like. And if you add an FTE, you get to feed more fish. But in this case, in the county manager's office, I'm talking about a programmatic need. And it's up to the county manager how that money gets allocated. I don't think it's education. You hire. I think it's the kind of program that you map out. And I think that should be the responsibility of the county manager to put a program together of public information that is more sophisticated and mature than the one that the county is using now.
Well, Chair Davis, since the county manager is being mentioned here, I guess I should weigh in. So the strategic plan that the board adopted has an element in there to develop a communications strategy. And so that was just something that the board adopted. So that's something that the staff was intending to be kicking off in July and working through the board to identify what that communication strategy and then what the staff requirements were for that. Everything we do has to be done in a sequential and a pragmatic way, and we certainly do not argue that there is a communication need, but there's a process that we need to be engaging to really understand what the deliverables are, and then what are the qualifications and the skills that we need to go into the market and purchase to actually do that for us. And so all of that is in the works. And so our approach through this budget proposal was to deal with some of the here and now issues that we just know about, that are just glaring deficiencies. And they certainly deal with the communications realm, but it also deals with some of the staff capacity of this office just to do all the work that is on our plate right now. So I certainly agree that the staffing levels in the county need to continually evolve. But what I hope we can do is to do that in synchronization with the strategic plan, so that we make sure that the board, the public, and staff are all working together to actually accomplish what the highest priority needs are. And so I totally appreciate Commissioner Webb's comments about the need for additional communication support. I think that we have a strategy moving forward, and if the board would like us to then expedite that strategy even quicker, then again, I just go back to some of my comments before, which is we'll just have to have a conversation with the board about realigning the timing of some of our priorities, because as you can imagine, our priorities are scheduled over an entire fiscal year. And so if this is one that the board would like us to move, higher in the queue, we certainly can, but we'll just have to then talk about some others that may move a little bit further in the queue. So I think this is a related conversation to what we talked about yesterday. So certainly no staff resistance in terms of the problem definition. I think it's just what is the approach that we would like to move forward with.
You're muted, Commissioner Webb.
Then I will just say that I think that it's up to the county manager about FTEs and et cetera. So I pass.
Is that a retraction of the
Commissioner Webb, Chair Davis, if I really could real quickly, I just want to make sure Commissioner Webb and all the budget committee members and the board members know that we do hear you, and we're certainly on the same page. But as I think everybody knows through the strategic plan process, there's a number of maneuvers that the county needs to do to really bolster our capacity. And so I think we've been dealing with many of those over the last couple of years, and I think we are making progress. But that was really some of the foundational work that was essential for us to now pivot into actually investing in staff and investing in some of these big projects that the board has been tasking us with. So, I personally feel good about what the trajectory is. I know it's never as quick as some people would hope, but I think we are making progress. And I think that I think we need to come back to this discussion in 2 years and hopefully relish in how much progress we have made with our communications strategy and some of the other projects that we hope to accomplish, because I think we are moving in the right direction, and I'm gratified that the board's pushing us at the same time.
County Manager. Commissioner Webb, can I clarify, was that a retraction of the previous motion that you started?
Can I just say I withdraw my previous motion?
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, I know I had some hands. Thank you all for your patience. I'll start. I think it's Commissioner Banks and then Member Montero and Member Davis. Commissioner Banks, did you have comment at this time?
No comment.
Thank you. Member Montero? Oh, you're muted, Tita, sorry.
I can appreciate all of the different things that Commissioner Webb has said, and I believe that maybe the county manager's office is budgeting themselves too tightly. When I think about I think about the grants that are out there that we could go after. I think about the proactive public information that can occur. I think about the improvements to the website that we need, and I know some of those would probably be contracted out. I would like to give the county manager's office more latitude for the possibility of extra staff. So I would like to increase that staff by a half FTE. And I'm not sure that, I heard it was an administrative assistant for communications. I'm not sure that I or even the budget committee could tell the county manager's office where to put that extra staffing. But I do believe that with the latitude and the having this in the back pocket as needed, that this would help the county manager's office accomplish the goals that are being set for them by the Board of Commissioners. So I would like to make a motion to increase the budget by a half FTE. And I'm sorry I can't give you a dollar figure because all I can say is the dollars commensurate with that half FTE. So maybe the $50,000 that Commissioner Webb is the figure, but I do know that it has to be attached to an FTE.
Member Montero, I might try to pin you down and ask you to create an objective. I'm hearing you want to increase a half FTE in the county manager's department. Do you have something you want that FTE to be going toward? Is this more administrative assistant work? Is this for public relations work? What can you give it a?
This would be at more at a PIO level, professional communications, or it could be used more towards the grant writing, because I don't think grant writing as a person has time gets the grants that you need, because you also need a grant writer who can go out and be searching for the grants and reviewing what are the conditions. Does this fit for this department? Does this fit for that department? I know both of those things are needed, and the same person can't do both of those because it's a different set of skills and knowledge. I'm sorry, I didn't let you pin me down. I'm sorry.
So I'm going to repeat what I'm taking as that motion, that we increase the budget for the county manager's office for professional communications and grant writing by 0.5 FTE with salary commensurate to needed skills and experience.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
Commissioner Thompson seconds that motion.
So I have a motion and a second to increase, and I'll just restate in short, by 0.5 FTE, the county manager budget to go toward communications and grant writing. Is there a discussion on that front? I saw Member Davis and then Commissioner Banks.
I just have a question for Member Montero. Why 0.5 FTE and not 1 FTE? Wouldn't it be more logical to hire a full-time person than a part-time person?
Well, I guess I was trying to be conservative. I heard there was a half FTE for communications, and there's another FTE that would somehow squeeze in some grant writing. I would not be adverse to saying 1 full FTE devoted to, but I didn't know that they needed a full FTE.
I think if we're going to hire the person with the education and experience, they're not going to be looking for a part-time job. They're going to be looking for a full professional job, and it's going to be much easier for the county manager's office to advertise for that and get reasonable applicants in today's world for a full-time job that comes with, the benefits associated with. If we're looking for someone to, yes.
I think your point is taken. Would you care to make a motion to amend?
Can I just respond to that for a minute?
Okay.
And that is that I wasn't saying that the job is half an FTE. I'm saying add a half FTE where you need it to increase the other positions.
I stand corrected. Thank you.
Commissioner Banks.
I was just looking at the staffing summary, and it looks like they're requesting 1.6 FTE, if I'm correct. And then if we raise that to a 0.4, that would be 2 FTE. And unless we are splitting job shares between other departments, and so I feel like there might be a little bit of math to do prior to. Because if you're looking at hiring people, or are we looking at hiring one person, or are we looking at hiring 2 people? Just because listed here it says 1.6, so I'm not sure where that 0.6 is at.
If I can interject, Commissioner, so the 0.6 is our management policy analyst works 0.6 out of the county manager's budget, and the other 0.4 she does out of the mental health budget. So currently all the employees who work for the county manager's office are all full FTEs.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, Ms. Montero would like to raise it 1 more person. So that would be 1 full FTE. I'm just trying to seek clarity. I'm not.
The motion on the floor is for only half FTE, which if the county manager's office is completely full FTE at the moment and it's not split with another department, it would be a part-time person, presumably.
And part-time sadly is not a livable wage. And so I'm just putting that out there, that if the budget committee is looking to do such, that a part-time person would not be a livable wage.
And I wasn't looking at 1 FTE as 1 person, and 1 FTE can be 2 people. Half an FTE can be added to other partial FTEs to create a full FTE. And that's what I was thinking. If it makes it more sense that we do a 1 FTE, I have no problem with that. And I would very easily change my motion. So let's go with that. I'm changing my motion.
Yeah, the motion belongs to the floor now. Sorry.
I know.
So I'll ask, is there any other discussion or amendments to the motion on the floor? Okay, Commissioner Thompson, you came off mute. Did you want to make a motion or a discussion point?
Heck yeah. Unless the county manager tells us he doesn't want another FTE, I'm going to move that we allow $150,000, not to exceed $150,000 for an additional FTE in the county manager's office to use as he deems appropriate.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for clarification there, Commissioner Thompson. Is that to replace the entire motion of Tita's? The reason I asked that is because there was some other material that she had suggested about professional communications, grant writing, etc. Are you intending to replace that?
Total replacement. That's what I'd like.
Okay.
I can
I'm
second
sorry.
that.
Can you repeat the current motion, please?
Sure. So I'll repeat 2 things. So Member Montero's motion was to increase the county manager budget by 0.5 FTE with salary commensurate to needed skills and experience for professional communications and grant writing in the department. Commissioner Thompson is motioning to amend and replace that with not to exceed $150,000 for an additional FTE to be used at the county manager's discretion. Is that correct, Commissioner Thompson? Does that answer your question, Member Davis? So we'd be entirely replacing Member Montero's original motion with not to exceed $150,000 for one additional FTE to be used at the county manager's discretion. With so let me ask, is there a second for the amendment on the floor? I see a couple hands not for seconds though. Is there a second for Commissioner Thompson's amendment? Tita, did you want to second that? Okay.
Sure, I'll second it.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second for that amendment. Let me ask, is there discussion on adding one additional FTE not to exceed $150,000 for the county manager's discretion? Commissioner Quila and Commissioner Banks.
Well, I appreciate everybody's desire to enhance the communication and grant writing opportunities for the county. This person will need to be managed and have direction given to them. And I'm just wondering if this is not creating additional work for our county manager. And I just would like to kind of have him weigh in on this.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Chair Davis, Chair Quayle, members of the Budget Committee. I think that all the instincts and all of the expressions that I've heard, I think they're right on. I think that we do have deficiencies and we have work to do. And I think that in my time here, that's part of the underpinnings for the strategic plan and adding, 14 roughly positions in the budget this year. And so I think that as I look forward into the next year, I really think it's important for us to come up with a strategy on the communications that then would have a cost to it, which could be staff, it could be consultants, it could be surveys, it could be any number of things, it could be software. And so I think that in my mind right now, I acknowledge and I agree with the intention. I'd like to get through the plan and then see what are the resource requirements, because they may be even different. And right now I'd like to spend the time on the plan. And so, I will make anything work because that's my responsibility. But I think the plan is going to dictate what the ultimate funding level requirements are. So I'm energized to start working on the plan. So, and my personal view is the plan has to be done with some consultant help that can, as Commissioner Webb said, that can really challenge us into thinking kind of out of the box and to engage in some more, some more modern ways, I think is how it was presented. And so I think that's where my focus is right now, but I will defer to the Budget Committee and the board on the path forward. So.
Okay, Commissioner Banks and then Member Davis.
I have two comments really, that if we did choose to do this and vote on this motion, I am grateful to both Tita and Commissioner Thompson for making sure that this is a livable wage for a future employee. My other concern is potentially putting the cart before the horse, placing money out there. Yes, that doesn't mean that we're hiring somebody immediately, but it does put pressure upon the budget, pressure upon the county and the county manager in order to hire for another position that we don't really have a description for. And I feel like also, it comes twofold. We're adding 14 staff members this year. Part of me hesitates just because we don't have a full staff description for this person. Like, what do we want this communications position to look like? And then part two is, where is the money going to come from? Because it will come from somewhere. And so are we potentially shorting another department in order to fund something that we don't fully identify at this point? I am all for a full-time grant writer, and I am all for a full-time communication staff member. I just feel like that there's a little work that needs to be done prior to initiating those two staffing positions. And that's my only hesitancy in this particular situation, is that where is the money going to come from, and what staffing descriptions are we going to be identifying with it? But again, I do want to reiterate, both avenues are extremely important, and I fully support both avenues. I'm a little bit more conservative when it comes to actually voting on this particular motion until we can iron out a few other things.
Thank you, Commissioner Banks. Commissioner Thompson, I might ask if we can let our member Davis speak, and then we can come back to you if you want to. Thank you.
I would just like to make a comment for the record that should this motion pass and these FTE positions be fulfilled by staff members, that I would like to see the county website be a big focus of one of those FTEs. The county website, no offense intended, but it's a little bit difficult for me to use. And I don't use it very often because it's difficult and it's a little bit arcane. So my personal preference would love to see the lion's share of one of these jobs go to updating and improving the county site so that the public can use it effectively and efficiently. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Davis. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. I hear you about that website. I do. So my reason for making the motion now is that this makes room in the budget for the county manager to be able to have the resources already allocated, so that when he is ready to move forward and it fits, he can do what he needs to do timely. And part of my energy around this, it's my nature, number one, but number two, I was on the phone this morning with Fritz Graham. There's money to be had, and they want us to be applying for it all over Clatsop County and beyond. There's a shortage of administrative infrastructure that allows us to take advantage of the money that's out there for housing and roads and broadband and every other category of need that we can mention. So what this says is, county manager, in this budget, you have support to act when you're ready, when you have done your plan, because we know Don is going to plan this because that's who he is. That's why we trust him. He can make his plan. The resources are available because we will have given him that authority. There's no push, there's no coercion. It's simply, we planned ahead as a budget committee so that when the county manager has done his plan sometime shortly into this budget year, his authority to spend to implement that plan will be in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Banks.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Quick question, maybe this goes to Ms. Steele. So if we are going to be increasing the FTE or placing $150,000 here, where are we going to be getting that money from, I guess, is my first question. And then my second question is this something that, is this funding, are we able to fund it repeatedly from here on into the future? I just want to make sure that A, the money is there, and B, that we're not dipping into a savings account in order to fund this FTE or this job, this position.
So this would come from your beginning balance reserves, and so it would be reducing your beginning balance reserves by $150,000. And your board goal is to maintain the 20%. And I apologize, I don't have it off the top of my head where you are currently at. And in regards to funding in the future, that is, all dependent on for the general fund. This is a general fund position. And so the general fund relies on property taxes and timber revenues for future. These costs will never go down. They will always only go up because there's associated COLAs, associated PERS, and then health insurance cost increases. So when we proposed this budget, we proposed it based on the work that we know that the strategic plan has in place. And so we proposed this additional 1.6 so that we could move forward and see what we are able to get accomplished based on the strategic planning goals with that additional 1.6, knowing that moving forward, if there is a need in the future, we can then come forward in a future budget cycle and make those additional requests.
Any further discussion or questions? Commissioner Webb.
Excuse me. Yeah. Who is talking?
It sounds like caller or Gretchen. We're getting some feedback from you. Can I get to you after Commissioner Webb?
I believe it's caller 5.
We might try Commissioner Webb. It looks like caller 5 is muted now.
Okay, thank you. No one here knows better than I do how slowly government works. But at the same time, the strategic plan was formulated beginning over a year ago. And if this is a component of the strategic plan, which I remember that it is, it seems to me the sooner we get on it, the better, because so much of the rest of our strategic plan needs to be certain that communication with our citizens is as good as it can possibly be. I would support Commissioner Thompson's belief that, you know, let's get this money on the scale now, and let's give the county manager. I think that maybe 150,000 would be about enough money that might be able to pull in some consultants and also to hire a full-time FTE. So I'm supporting Commissioner Thompson's issue on this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Member Allen, did you have comment? I know you came off mute a bit ago.
I did, and I apologize. I don't have a way to raise my hand or anything on this the way that I'm connected here. I think sustainability of the position and kind of what you just said there, Commissioner Webb, was contract versus an FTE. Kind of as I've been hearing this discussion, I've been thinking, you know, maybe a contractor versus an FTE with a livable wage, you know, coming into this process a bit new, not understanding that the strategic plan, fully comprehending all that. If this is part of a strategic plan, then yes, it needs to be funded, and especially if that's a year or so old. However, what I heard in the very initial conversation was that maybe, and maybe I'm incorrect, Commissioner Webb, but that you were a little bit concerned about the direction of this, and there's a lack of direction for this position. So are we putting this just in salaries and wages, or is there ability to put it between contract, or is that something that you're going to move around at your own discretion? Because I don't know that just hiring another person is going to do it if there's not the direction behind it.
I will say, Member Allen, my understanding of the motion as made, or the amendment as made by Commissioner Thompson, was that it was up to 150,000 for an additional FTE. So that would not necessarily be for contract work unless we want to change that language. That's the way I would read it anyway.
Okay, so it would only be available for salaries and not what just Commissioner Webb spoke to, that they could hire somebody if they were better suited, because a lot of grant writers do it on contract. They don't necessarily become an employee. Many of them do it for multiple agencies, and those are actually sometimes the better ones, mainly because they have more connections, and grant writing is a lot about connections.
I see a hand from Commissioner Bangs and then Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Bangs?
Can I move to amend the motion?
Yes, I don't know that we've set ground rules for tertiary amendments, so sure, we can go for that.
Okay, I move to amend the motion to add that the $150,000 is to Manager Boone's discretion via contract or FTE.
Okay. So I've got a motion on the floor to amend to make it up to 150,000 to be used at County Manager Boone's discretion for either contract work or one FTE.
And I just wanted to make, yeah, that's correct. I just wanted to make this a clarification for my part that it is, if we end up not using all of it, great. If we use it, great, it's there. I feel like having it there for Manager Boone is I think we can all kind of agree on that.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second from the floor for that amendment? Tita,
I will second that.
Okay.
I will second that.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on amending to essentially make the motion for either one FTE or for contract expenses? Any discussion on that amendment? So I've got Commissioner Webb and then Commissioner Quila.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to give a gesture that I think this is a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And then Commissioner Quila?
Well, just I appreciate the discussion. If we decide not to do this and say we go through the process of reviewing the strategic plan and deciding on a strategy for communication and grant writing, what would stop us from actually going and hiring somebody under contract if we have that money in contingency?
You would just, the staff would come before you with a budget adjustment.
Okay.
And the same would go if it was decided that additional FTE was necessary.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion on the tertiary amendment? Okay, let me ask, is there any objection to the amendment to change one FTE to one FTE or contract expenses? No objection?
Shouldn't it read and or?
Is there any objection to the group to changing that to and or?
Chair Davis, may I ask a question?
Sure.
I do not have any objection for the and or, but I just need a clarification for this motion. Are we going from the current 1.6 FTE to a potential 2.6 or any combination thereof using contract work? How does it fit in with the current 1.6, I guess is my question.
I think that the potential is anywhere from 1.6 with full contract work to 2.6 with no contract work is how I would read the motion as it stands right now.
Terrific, thank you.
Commissioner Banks, did you have a question?
I think a clarification. I think we hung our hat on the $150,000. Am I correct or am I incorrect?
That would still be a portion of the amendment from Commissioner Thompson, regardless of the effect of this amendment. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure that everything's all ducks are in a row.
Okay, so let me ask again, is there any objection to changing 1 FTE to 1 FTE and or contract expenses. Okay, so I don't see any objection for that. So we're back to Commissioner Thompson's amendment, which was to allocate up to $150,000 for an additional 1 FTE or contract expenses to be used at the county manager's discretion. Let me ask, is there a discussion on that amendment at this time? Let me move to, oh, Commissioner Quila.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, and I'll do a full vote when we get to the main motion here, but I want to ask, is there any objection to Commissioner Thompson's amendment, which is to allocate up to $150,000 for an additional 1 FTE or contract expenses to be used at county manager's discretion? Is there any objection to that amendment? Commissioner Quila?
Well, I think I'm just going to say that I would rather us go through the process of kind of sitting down and determining exactly what we need. I think that we've had developed this budget over a period of time, over several months, and then this was what was identified. And if we want to make some additions to it in the future, we have that ability through a budget amendment. And I guess that's the process that I would rather follow.
Okay, thank you, sir. So what I'm going to do now, since I'm going to take that as objection, Commissioner, I'm just going to go through and have a vote on this. So I'll ask, since you're the first on my commissioner list, I'll start with you. Commissioner Quila, how do you vote on the amendment to allocate up to $150,000 for an additional 1 FTE and or contract expenses for county manager's discretion?
No.
Thank you. Commissioner Bangs?
I wish for more discussion, but I don't know if that's possible at this point. I just had a couple questions.
Well, as far as process here, so this is still an amendment. So if you vote to approve the amendment, we're going to go back to discussion on this as a main motion. So you'd certainly have the chance to talk more.
Okay, excellent. There are a lot of amendments going on right now, so I appreciate. Yep. I vote yes for the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Webb?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Toyuka, are you with us at this second? We'll come back just in case he's able to join us. Member Montero?
Yes.
Okay, Member Davis?
Yep.
Member Allen?
I vote no.
Okay. I think that's everyone, unless Commissioner Toyuka joins us. So I've got a vote of 5-2 in approving that amendment. So we're back to that amendment, which replaced the main motion. So just to restate again, we have a motion on the floor to allocate up to $150,000 for an additional 1 FTE and or contract expenses to be used as county manager's discretion. Because I know you wanted to make further comment, Commissioner Bangs, I'll go to you and let you discuss.
Okay, this question is for Ms. Steele or anybody else who has more budgetary experience than I do in regards to where funding comes from and how you can move it back and forth. Commissioner Quila was mentioning how we can take this money after we identify our concerns, issues, plan, and do a budgetary amendment later on in this year. So if this original motion goes through with all of the amendments, and it places funding into this account, can there be a budgetary amendment later on moving it back out?
We typically don't do amendments to reduce expenditures. We just wouldn't spend the money, and therefore the unspent money would roll into next year's beginning balance. Does that answer your question? And then
Yeah,
in
that
regards,
answers my question.
and then in regards to if you left it and did a budget adjustment mid-year, per board policy, we budget 10% of the total general fund expenditures as contingency. And so that's where the funds would come from. So we do, in the current budget, you have budgeted contingency. So you would just be reducing that budgeted contingency and moving it into the county manager's budget.
Okay, so if this motion didn't pass and we did a budgetary amendment later on this year after we identify the who's, the what's, the when's, the where's, the how's, the why's, it would then be a part of the budget the following year. So I guess I'm kind of camping out in Commissioner Quila's thought process of I would really like to identify the who's, the what's, the when, the where, and the how's. I guess.
So just to clarify, if you did do a budget adjustment mid-year and you added that FTE, then in next year's budget process, rather than this same, whatever, we're proposing that the staff right now would be increased to 5.5. What would be in next year's budget would be we would have 6.5 staff. And we wouldn't be asking for that person to be added because they would have already been added. But
okay, so later on, as we go through this strategic plan and we identify all of our concerns and how we want to solve the processes as a board, we can request either an FTE or contract work, do a budget amendment, and do it for the amount needed, not for a umbrella amount, because maybe we need 165,000. I mean, I'm just putting it out there as a thought process.
Yes, if we came before you with a budget adjustment, we would have an estimated amount if it was for contracted services as to the amount of services we're anticipating. If it was for an actual FTE, what we would do is we would take the position that we're hiring for and the salary range for that. We would build out a cost sheet that would include all of the taxes, PERS, health insurance costs associated with a potential new hire. And that's what we would bring before the board.
Okay. I just, looking at everybody on my screen, I can see all of us are aware of the need. All of us adhere that we want to do, we want more for our staff. We want more flexibility. We want to lighten loads. We want, but I can agree with Commissioner Quila where maybe we need to identify the how before we identify the funding. But this is, I'm grateful for the conversation, so thank you.
Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. I'm going to say a little bit about my budget experience. I've been a state agency head in Alaska. I've been a state agency head in Oregon. I've taken 4 budgets, from agency request budget to governor's recommended budget to legislatively approved budget. I chaired the Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission that had to review and sign off on the annual operating budgets of all the municipal corporations in Multnomah County. TriMet, Metro, the Port, the City of Portland, Multnomah County, every single one of those agencies. I have extensive experience in budgeting. So when I look at our cash reserves, and we are exceeding the levels recommended by the Governmental Finance Officers Association, I am not happy. We are not here to be an insurance company or a bank. We're here to collect tax revenues and spend them appropriately to provide the services needed by our taxpayers. So for me, we need to make use of that money, not just save it, because we are going beyond what is recommended as the appropriate level. I think we're saving too much. That's been my position. We have to invest. We can't just save and spend. We have to invest for the future. We need administrative infrastructure so that we can take advantage and and meet the needs, the unmet needs that we see crying around us, housing and childcare and broadband and mental health and public health and roads and on and on. So that's why I am comfortable giving the county manager the authority to spend now, because number one, we've got the money. Number two, it's a more nimble process. If the county manager can just make the plan, get it approved by the board and spend the money, we can move much more quickly. And number three, it demonstrates what I would consider legislative intent by the budget committee, which is we want to use the tax dollars to serve our people. So that's why I'm urging that we go forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other discussion? Member Allen, did I see you come off mute?
Yeah, speaking to that, I think that by giving kind of a $150,000 blank check, what you're doing is you're doing away with the checks and balances that Commissioner Quila is talking about. So I'm going to disagree just a bit with you, Commissioner Thompson, on that, in that those checks and balances are there, and there's enough kind of, what is this position? And I think that in the fiduciary duty of being, astute with the monies that are available there, it's not that I distrust the county manager. It's that you're putting too much on one individual or one part of the agency, whether it be you want them to move fast. Well, what are they moving on? And so for me, I don't see what they're moving on exactly. It's just kind of a blank check, and you're doing away with that process where they come back and say, here's what we've gone through, and we've said, okay, this is what we would like to hire for this one FTE, and coming back to the Board of Commissioners and saying, that's a process that you're doing away with. And that's kind of where I have to say, I don't think that offering the 150 is very good. I think they need to come back and do it out of contingency, because especially if you're for sustainability going forward and saying, we're going to add a whole FTE, we're going to have somebody possibly move to this community with a salary that is a livable wage. And then in a few years, maybe it's not sustainable. What are they going to do? So I think I don't think this is solid enough to say where you want it to go. In moving fast, I think it's, for me, that's just from the discussion I've heard. Although I will say I don't know the strategic plan well enough to say that. Anyway, that's my perspective.
Thank you, Member Allen. I got Commissioner Webb, and then I think Member Davis. Commissioner, you just muted yourself. Commissioner, you're muted.
I'm sorry. I'd like to echo everything that Commissioner Thompson said. I don't approve of maintaining a constant 20% reserve. I think that's bad policy, and we have so many issues in the long term that this county is facing. We've got to start addressing them. Now, this, incidentally, is not a blank check to the county manager. The county manager works for the board. If he pisses us off, we fire him. Don doesn't ever piss us off. We have huge respect and confidence for him. That's why we hired him. But this isn't something where the board is going to sit down and do an official PI strategy. We have to bring in experts to help us choose a program and a path forward. We don't have anybody on our staff, probably other than Don, who could do this. And we want to give him all the support that he possibly can, that we possibly can, so that he can get good advice about how to structure, who to hire, yada yada. I actually don't like the whole idea in our budgeting process of being so specific to FTEs. I think one of the great mistakes that previous Clatsop County commissions have made is not seeking outside expertise when they have to make an important decision. And if you want to give me 5 hours to talk about the housing authority mess, you know, I can give you specifics about that. But but the point is that that's why the big guy makes the big bucks, because we trust him to plan for his staff. And I was actually very disappointed with this submission because I don't think it certainly didn't meet my expectations for the kind of office that this county manager should be running. We hired somebody with enormous experience, incredible knowledge, marvelous management skills. Our staff adore him. I think the board pretty much does too. And like I say, that's why he makes the big bucks. Let him take this money, get some advice, do some research, maybe hire somebody part-time to actually do the research. I don't know. Let him make that decisions. Let him go with this. And it's not a blank check because everything he does, he reports back to the board. And we can't possibly spend the time, God knows, with what we're paid and the time that we spend on projects. No, like I say, this is why he makes the big bucks, and it's not a blank check. There's no such thing as a blank check in Clatsop County for our staff. Thank you.
Member
Well-
Davis.
I just have a question. I'm very much in support of this. I'm curious, the $150,000, is it over and above? I believe the expenditure change for staffing for this budget is 172,890, and maybe Assistant Manager Steele can clarify this to me, but the 172,890, it would be that plus 150, right? That's what we're doing, just for my own head.
That is correct.
Yay! Thank you.
Member Allen, did you want to speak again? It looked like you came off mute again.
And I meant no disrespect by the blank check comment. It's basically what you're saying. You're saying, okay, you have 150,000 to spend, and no, they really don't have to come back. I am grateful that he does that if he does. I have no idea and am making no assumptions as to whether he does or doesn't. And I honestly am not, I mean, this is my first time on this. I have not seen the operation, so I'm not trying to insinuate in any way that it isn't working. What I heard in your initial statements, Commissioner Webb, was that you weren't happy with what was going on. And so I guess that's why I was questioning, why would you authorize or wish to authorize 150,000 without more direction toward what that was for, other than this conversation here as the Board of Commissioners. Now, I'm not even saying his skills aren't where they are. They probably are, and he may come back to you. I have no idea, really. It was more of just what the process is for, is that rather than just approve something without the direction of this is exactly what it's for, that's what I call a blank check. You can call it many other things. I call it that. I didn't mean it disrespectfully, but it's circumventing the process of him coming back and saying, you know, I've defined and we've defined through discussion exactly what we want for this position. And that the commission is on board with that. Everybody says, yeah, that's a really good way to go. And there's money there in contingency to do that. So why would we vote for 150,000 extra without that direction?
Commissioner Webb.
I'd like to answer that, Gretchen, because I think I think it deserves an answer. It's a really good question. This board and the previous board that Commissioner Thompson and Commissioner Quayla and I served on, we had the kind of relationship with the county manager, which I feel is our responsibility to do. You give that person the resources that they need to bring you back ideas. And this is a kind of thing. I mean, I am very critical of our public information office, as I have stated. But this is not something that the board can sit down and design the answer to. We have to buy expertise. There are very few things that a board of badly paid public elected officials can do on their own. I mean, we seek, look at this budget. We fund everything from fish pens, to major construction projects. We always have to seek expertise for virtually everything that we do. And what we're asking with this motion is to give the county manager the resources that he might need to come back to us with a plan that we will then talk about. But it's beyond our 5 commissioners. We don't have that expertise. And so we have to buy it. And we have to give the county manager the money to buy it. And we never, no manager in this county, departmental or executive, is ever given a blank check. They come back to us, and sometimes we go to them, and sometimes we say, whoa, wait a minute, what are you doing over there with that fish pen? I mean, we do that. We take it, the responsibility for some of that, and they regularly report to us I'm not going to say ad infinitum, but boy, I mean, these folks spend an awful lot of time coming back to the board to give us information and to suggest ways for us to proceed. So none of that happens without that process going back and forth between the board and the staff. Be assured of that.
But that didn't answer the question, because the question is, why would you put the cart before the horse and give the money before he comes with the recommendation? That's the base question here.
Okay, and the answer to that is he needs money. He needs money in order to come back to us with a recommendation, because he's not going to sit in his office and write out a recommendation. He's going to seek input from consultants or all kinds of other people, and then come back to us. So he's got to pay for that. He's got to pay for that support network and maybe hiring a consultant, etc. He has to pay for that. And until we put it in the budget, he can't spend it.
He can if he comes back and asks and says, I have these consultants, I would like to move money from contingency. That is the process. And putting the money there before you actually have the recommendation is backwards of the process.
No, I'm sorry. I think that you misunderstand the process of the relationship between the county manager and the board of commissioners. We give our staff a budget every year to go forth and do. And we don't give them, I mean, hell, we keep 20% in a contingency, basically reserve. We don't give them extra money to horse around and do a project and to with no strings attached. That's not accountability at all. We would be putting, and incidentally, budget adjustments are really, they're very necessary because we constantly get grants and we get money and spend money in different ways. But to me, this would be an unnecessary budget adjustment because we're talking about it right now. And giving the money, he goes off and does it, and he comes back to us, and we tell him to proceed or not.
Okay, and I just respectfully disagree that it's the other way. And I have experience auditing schools, cities. I mean, I've
done those things. I've seen it done both ways. And from my personal experience, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I just think probably the rest of us recognize that you two may not agree on this. So I want to give the opportunity at least to Commissioner Bangs, and then if we want to return to this discussion, we can. But I think I recognize both of your points. Let me say that. Commissioner Bangs, you've had your hand up for a bit.
Yes, thank you. So this question is either for Monica, Dawn, or Commissioner Aquila. In the past, hasn't the contingency fund been the pot of money to be used for this purpose? Now, granted, I know I haven't been here as long as others may have been, but if we identify the need, we follow the steps, say we identify that we need a consultant, then traditionally we look to the contingency fund for that pot for however much that consultant will be.
No.
Thank you, Commissioner Bev, but let me complete my question. Now, that way we are not rolling this continuous funding into basically a staffing summary or a particular account permanently. And granted, I know there are other ways to get it out of that account later on, but I guess what I'm seeing is our contingency fund is that funding for our county, be it the county manager or whomever else comes to us and says, I see a need, this is the need, this is what we need, this is my request, this is my thought. The board goes yay or nay, but then that funding is still safely in contingency. And I won't get into you know, the 20% and why or why not that's too high or too low at the moment. It's more along the lines of, isn't that contingency our pot of funding for this particular type of situation?
Yes, that is what we have used contingency for in the past. And for example, when we have had contractual services that have either needed to be extended, we've used contingencies, or for instance, we identified this year that we needed to bring on a separate labor attorney. And so we have a contract that was not budgeted with a labor attorney. So that is the intention of the contingency. When there are unidentified expenses that come, then we come before the board with a budget adjustment to pay for those unexpected expenditures.
Okay. Thank you, Monica. Member Davis.
What I think I'm hearing from this discussion is a matter of opportunity, in that if we pass this proposal and the money is allocated for County Manager Bone to act, sometimes opportunities are fleeting and we have to jump on an opportunity when it's there. And I think by allocating this money to him will allow him to perhaps jump on an opportunity, be it a contract person or someone who's looking to hire, and it'll make things easier. Whereas if it's left in contingency, then I think the process to get it out of contingency into the county manager's pocket so that he can spend it might be longer, and therefore that opportunity to hire someone, be it contract or whatnot, could be lost. We might lose out to another county, and what I see is us facilitating getting the best person in a fleeting moment of opportunity. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I think I'm hearing. So I think by passing this motion, we are just making county manager Bone, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, his job easier and quicker, and thereby making less work for everybody. That's what I think I'm hearing.
Any further discussion on the main motion? Okay, well, I don't see discussion, so that means we can move to a vote. So the main motion, to remind everyone, is to allocate up to $150,000 for an additional 1 FTE or contractual services to be used at the county manager's discretion. That is the motion. I'll go around and ask for everyone's vote. Commissioner Quila, how do you vote on the motion?
I vote no.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson, how do you vote on the motion?
I vote yes.
Commissioner Bangs, how do you vote on the motion?
I vote no.
Commissioner Webb, how do you vote on the motion?
Yes.
I don't see Commissioner Toyuka. Commissioner Toyuka, are you on either of the phone lines that are on right now? Not hearing an answer from Commissioner Toyuka. Member Montero, how do you vote?
Yes.
Member Davis, how do you vote?
I vote yes.
Member Allen, how do you vote?
No.
Okay, I've got a vote of 4-3. Is that your count as well, Monica? All right.
You are allowed to vote as the chair.
That's true. Normally, I would only vote to break a tie, and we don't have a tie at the moment. So I believe by 4-3, the motion passes. Okay, so I'll just restate the motion for the record. That was a motion to allocate up to $150,000 for an additional 1 FTE or contractual services to be used at the county manager's discretion. Any further discussion on the county manager budget? Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, I thought we changed the motion to say on an FTE and or.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you for the Scrivener's correction there. That was what we voted to amend the motion to. Any further discussion on the county manager's budget? Okay, not seeing any further discussion. How about human resources? That's on 344.
Okay, and just a reminder, we do have a few more budgets to get through, and we will have to stick through it to get through them today. So just a reminder on that.
I think, Monica, on that point, my intention is at the moment to continue through the county manager department budget, and then maybe before we go to your budget under finance, to maybe take a bathroom break for everyone, just so people can get up and stretch their legs and things, and then come back and finish up. If that's all right with you?
Yeah.
Great.
So the human. Sorry.
Commissioner Banks.
What page? I'm sorry. What page again?
So we're on 344.
So the human resources budget is seeing an increase to the FTE as well. We're adding an additional staff person, an HR general's position is what we are budgeting for. We're also seeing an increase in legal services, and this is due to the contracted legal attorney that I mentioned that we brought on this year, and we'll continue to be using him. And this has been very beneficial in regards to negotiations. We're currently going through negotiations in the current year with 3 of our bargaining units, and then next year we will be going through negotiations with the other 2. There is also an increase in some recruitment expenses. We are currently recruiting for our public health director, and depending on when that position gets filled and when that person would be starting with the county, there would be some potential expenses associated with the hiring of that and the recruitment process of that position. Are there any questions?
Questions or comments on the human resources budget? Kelly, thank you for becoming visible for a minute. It doesn't appear we have questions for you. Thank you. Monica.
In regard to the county council budget on page 351, this is a relatively status quo budget. This will be our second year that we will be having in-house county council rather than contracted services. And so, are there any questions there?
Commissioner Webb.
I'm sorry. Could we go back to the HR budget? Because I did have one little question about it.
Sure.
And it is on measures on page 348, volunteer hours. What is that? What does that mean?
So we have a number of volunteers, whether it's through our search and rescue, high angle rescue team, animal shelter, and more recently, and I don't know that this count is including that, it in the current projected, it is including it. And then next year, we're anticipating that the PIC volunteers and the immunization volunteers will be decreasing. So in the projected amounts for this year, we're projecting approximately 24,000 hours or 23,400 hours. And then next year, we anticipate that that will be going down to approximately 14,000 hours, which is more in line with the number of volunteer service hours we typically have.
Okay. And does it mean, does that really, it rolls through the Human Services Office?
Yeah, the position that currently works for Kelly is also the volunteer coordinator, and she uses a volunteer software called Volgistics that tracks all of that information and in regards to the number of hours, and then also in regards to if we have any potential injuries or anything like that, we track all of that stuff.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll make one last check. Any other discussion on human resources? Okay. Okay, let's really move to county council.
So again, this is the status quo budget, so unless there's any questions.
Any questions or discussion for county council? Joanna, thanks for sticking with this whole process. No questions for you, it looks like. Thank you. So if there are no questions for county council, and I'm still not seeing any, let's take a 5-minute break. Let everybody get up and walk around, use the bathroom, things like that, get a drink, and then come back in 5 minutes so that we can finish up with Monica's budget. Okay?
Andy, do you have an ETA for when we'll be done? I know that's dicey, but
Monica has probably a better idea than I do, but I think honestly a lot depends on you all. I might remind people when we come back, though we're not all here, that you always have the option to call the question and end discussion when we get bogged down or diverted into long discussions of topics. So I may encourage members to take advantage of that and force more votes so that we can move more quickly. But yeah, that'd be my feedback.
I do need to let you know that I have to leave at 4:30 because I've got a homelessness forum this evening that I have to keep getting ready for and move along with. So thank you.
Thanks to you. Okay, so I've got 3:19. We'll plan to restart us at 3:24. Thank you all. Monica, are you back on at the moment? Just quickly check again. Monica, are you back yet? Back, Commissioner.
Gives herding cats new meaning, huh?
We went through some mazes there. That was an interesting path for us to go down. I think, I hate to make predictions about such things. I think the rest of the budget will be more straightforward. Monica, I think if you are ready, we can go ahead and get started on child custody mediation. I think folks will filter back in as they hear us proceeding, would be my suspicion, or they get done with the bathroom and such. For the group, we are on page 233 now. Again, that's child custody mediation is the next item, 233.
So this fund is the fund that we use in order to provide mandated mediation services for parents who are separated or divorcing for their children. These revenues come from the state, and they are a very small amount of revenues. And this fund has continued to decrease significantly over the past several years. We did have a larger amount, and the courts started using it to also do some evaluation services. We are working with the courts because they're the ones who mandate these services. So we are working with the courts to try and make sure that we're providing these services, but still doing so so that we don't deplete our revenues. So for the most part, this is a relatively status quo budget, except for the fact that the contractual amount that we have to provide the services has decreased by approximately $9,300.
Okay. Any questions or discussion on child custody mediation? Again, that's page 233, starting on 233 anyway. Commissioner Banks.
Is the reduction because of state funding? Where does that funding resource come from?
Sorry, it is state funding, and it's not necessarily a reduction. It's just that we've been flat funded for so long, and you have mediators whose costs continue to increase and such. And then, like I said, they had built up some reserves, but then they wanted to try and use those for other types of services, and that more rapidly depleted those reserves. And so.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on child custody mediation? Okay, if not, we're jumping ahead again. 354 is budget and finance.
So the budget and finance budget is, again, a relatively status quo budget. There's been a slight decrease in this budget, and that is we had a retirement of a long-term employee, and that position was an accountant 3 position. With the restructuring of this department, we have a new budget and finance manager. And so she's dedicated there, where previously the director in that department was in multiple departments. So we're not needing another accountant 3 to do some of those higher level tasks. So we hired an accountant 2 to perform those duties. So there's a slight reduction in overall expenses.
Thank you, Monica. Any questions, discussion on budget and finance? I'm not seeing or hearing any, Monica. So information systems, 359.
So in this, there is a typo. It should say increase rather than decrease in regards to some contractual software purchases that we'll be making. So that line item has increased for a potential move to a new office suite that may occur, that will happen in the cloud. We also, as previously mentioned in, I think it was yesterday's meeting, the shifting of the GIS position. So now rather than having it in Public Works, it's now housed here in our GIS department that falls under IT. And then there's also an additional FTE being added here for a help desk position. A lot of our IT staff have to go out and work in different departments. And so therefore, when departments call because they're having problems rebooting their computer, whatever the case may be, there isn't anybody there always to answer the phone. So this person is dedicated to being there in the office to provide that assistance.
Okay, any questions or comments on IT? Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, sir. It's my hypothesis that every organization, public, private, no matter what, depends on its IT. We live or die on our IT, and we are blessed with our IT department. I'm not looking at you, Jim Gardner, but I'm praising you and your department. So thank you. We need you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Any other discussion, questions? I have just a little question, which is software maintenance has gone up quite a lot.
That's that line item that I was referring to. If we potentially move to a cloud-based system, if we move away from the Microsoft suite to the cloud, there is that potential cost.
Any other questions or comments on information systems? Okay, hearing none. Jim, thank you for joining us for a minute there. Building and grounds on 365.
So this budget doesn't have a whole lot of changes other than there are some just increases anticipated with our custodial services. They did go up slightly in the current fiscal year for additional COVID cleaning, and then we just anticipate annual increases that the contracts typically have negotiated in them. We do also have a new line item in the amount of $20,000 that is increasing the materials and services for the new Warrenton jail location.
Okay. Thank you, Monica. Any questions or comments for building and grounds? Commissioner Webb.
Yes, I'm sorry, Monica. Excuse me. I had my internet is kind of going in and out, and I missed the beginning of your sentence about issues at the new jail.
Oh, not issues, just that we have a new line item added at the very end of materials and services on page 370 for utilities out at the Warrenton jail. It's an additional $20,000, and that's anticipated based on current utility costs at our existing jail, and then some because of the larger square footage. So yeah, that's the main increase to the materials and services category.
And that's interesting. That's under building and grounds.
All of our utility bills for the general fund departments are paid through our buildings and grounds because they're responsible for all of our facilities.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other discussion for building and grounds? Okay, not seeing any. Dues and special assessments, 371.
Yes, so this budget is seeing a slight increase in our general liability insurance costs of approximately 20%. And this 20% increase is above our actual costs, not our budgeted costs. And so that's one area of increase. And then we've also budgeted the $50,000 that is for contributions to outside agencies. 30 of that is that grant-based program, and then the other 20 is something that we started last year and that will be bringing before the board this year in regards to the social service support agencies that we provided last year, so the $20,000 there. We also budgeted again, proposed in the budget again, the $50,000 for the homeless liaison position that we contract with Clatsop Community Action to provide. I will say that they do have their homeless liaison positions hired, and they had one for over a month now, and then they hired their second one, and they're doing off to a great start and doing great work. And then we also have $150,490 that is budgeted for the public road and drainage improvements, and that is the 30% discretionary of the 2.5% transient room tax increase that took place. And so that is for public road and drainage improvements, primarily in the Arch Cape area. And those are, and then we have our typical other services that we're providing as far as the Soil and Conservation District, the Northwest Senior Disability. The Library Services Agreement, it is also being proposed to increase by $5,000. And this proposed increase is just to provide them the full amount that they had requested to support the ROC program, the Rural Outreach in Clatsop County program. That program cost an estimated $20,000, and so we're fully funding that.
Thank you, Monica. Any questions, discussion on dues and special assessments? Okay, next is general fund stabilization, 374.
So this is something that we had from the long-term financial plan, the establishment of the general fund stabilization account. One thing that we have realized when trying to differentiate your general fund pot of money is that it's harder to track when it's in with the rest of the money. So in the current year, last year, what we budgeted for 2021, we budgeted to transfer that out to a special individual fund. And so this is still showing because it has an active history in it. So there's nothing is in here, nothing is budgeted to take place. It all sits in Fund 003 now.
Any questions or comments on general fund stabilization? Commissioner Banks?
So our general fund stabilization is solely based on timber sales. Is that what it's solely based on?
It is, the money that sits in there is excess revenues from timber that has sat there. And then per the board's long-term financial plan, there's a recommendation to have a general fund stabilization account. So should we have a shortfall in timber revenues, then we have those resources available to help cover the costs in the fiscal year. And so the way that the board policy reads, or the long-term financial plan reads, is that we budget the 15-year low in the general fund. Anything in excess of that would go towards the special projects fund to fund those general fund capital improvements or one-time projects. And then anything in excess of that would go into the general fund stabilization account.
Okay, thank you.
Monica, not a question particularly, and this is only, I'm only bringing it up on this fund because I was curious about it and it was made a little difficult. It would be really handy in budget highlights if in a note like the funds are budgeted in 003 1200 to note where, what page in the budget we could find that fund on.
I can make that edit. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Any other questions or discussion on general fund stabilization? Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing any. So I think we can move to the next item, which is transfers to other funds. That is the next page, 376.
So one edit that I do have on here is the transfers to the health department. It currently reflects a transfer amount of $1,084,250. And the amount that it will actually transfer based on the revenues that the health department budgeted is actually $1,056,800. So I have made that note. So at the end, that adjustment will be what you're approving in the amended proposed document. The 1.394 million is the amount being transferred to special projects to fund those capital improvement projects and one-time projects that are budgeted through the general fund. And then we have our transfer to the Marine Patrol, as well as the transfer to the Child Support Fund.
Okay, any questions for transfers to other funds? Okay, so the next item is general fund contingency. That is the next on 378.
And this is, the amount of this is approximately 2.8 million, and this is based on the board policy of budgeting the 10% of the total general fund expenditures in contingency.
Any questions on appropriations for contingency? Okay, not hearing any. General fund stabilization.
So the general fund stabilization is where we have made this a separate, more easily identifiable fund. In the years past, we have budgeted out of special projects $300,000 that gets transferred to the PERS unfunded liability. So that way we can make future payments towards our unfunded liability to help keep our PERS rate from continuing to increase. Since this fund did receive excess general fund dollars per the board's long-term financial plan, it was transferred in here. What we're proposing is instead of making that transfer to the PERS liability fund out of the special projects fund, we're proposing to make it out of here. So that will keep this balance around approximately $2 million or just over $2 million. And still keeping in line with the concept of a general fund stabilization, because by paying that $300,000 towards the PERS liability, that helps stabilize our future PERS rate costs. So that's the rationale behind that change in budgeting. That's not to say that that will happen every year, because again, it's dependent upon whether or not we have those excess timber revenues available.
Any questions for GF stabilization? Sorry, I should have read it that way to begin with because we have another general fund.
I know it's tough. I had to come up with a different name.
Any questions, discussion? Okay, then American Rescue Plan. Next page.
So we added this new fund. We did a supplemental budget and added this new fund in the current fiscal year. We have gone through the process to get approved to receive these monies through Treasury, and so hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll be receiving the funds. And so that's why we're projecting that there's going to be a beginning balance of 3.9 million. Because the way that we've been told that these funds will be distributed is that we'll receive 50% of what we've been told is we'll get 7.8 million. So we are anticipating that we're going to receive that 50% up front. We haven't been fully informed when that next 50% might occur. So we are anticipating that it would occur in the 21-22 fiscal year. But if not, we are not anticipating to spend all of those monies. We'll be going before the board to further refine our American Rescue Plan Act spending based on the strategic plan, the governor's 10-point economic recovery plan, and the federal guidelines. So right now we are proposing to spend approximately $3.4 million. Of that, it's for grants for small businesses, investments in the public health infrastructure, a county facility space planning, because that is an issue for us in regards to finding space for the additional FTE. Addressing ongoing septic and sewer infrastructure needs that came up yesterday in regards to the haulage issues that we've been having, as well as we have some residents in our community who don't have the financial means to make the septic tank upgrades necessary. So that would potentially include a grant program to assist those people. Affordable housing, the mental health crisis response, addressing our homeless population, and childcare and broadband. Some of these funds are budgeted in special payments because they would be, in some instances, pass-through funds to other organizations. Some of it is materials and services because it would be contractual services for some of this to get accomplished. And then some of it is transfers out because it would be going to other departments.
Questions or comments on American Rescue Plan? Not seeing any. Oh, Commissioner Webb.
When are we going to get more specific about these allocations? I mean, this is a lot of digits here.
I apologize, I don't have the rolling calendar in front of me, but we are coming before the board, I believe in June, to next month, to talk about that plan with the board.
And how much of this, you mentioned the word pass-through, is any of this pass-through to cities or special?
The cities are receiving their own funds. The pass-through would be potentially like we worked with Cedar on the CARES funding. So we would be passing through for them to be able to provide grants to local businesses.
Okay. So we'll begin to see some of that in June. I mean, we'll see the plan for it.
Yeah, it's our intention. Again, I apologize, I don't have the calendar in front of me to know exactly what dates, but we do have that on the schedule to come before the board. And I do believe Dawn has provided some of that guidance in the Friday update as well.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks.
Monica, if I could just, Chair, if I could just interrupt for 2 seconds. I just want to add a little bit.
I did lose your camera there, Don. I saw you for a minute and then you went away.
Oh, sorry. There I am. I apologize. I'm not on camera only because we're having some internet issues. So, but I did want to mention that we've presented just a concept to the board, but we'll be coming in a work session on June 1st. Actually, it'll be May 26th. And we have set aside quite a bit of time for a work session discussion about the American Rescue Act. And then the goal is to get some direction from the board about how we might actually want to finalize budgeting for that program. So.
Other questions or discussion on American Rescue Plan? Okay, let's move on to COVID-19.
So
COVID-19.
Yeah, it's good for public assistance, COVID-19. So when these are very creative names. I'm a creative person like that. So when we started with all of this COVID funding, things continue to regularly evolve. And so originally we thought that the county would be working directly with FEMA to receive funding for some of this COVID vaccination and continued testing and wraparound services. As you know, we went before the board, we added this fund, and then it was further decided that it would probably be better if we went through OHA instead of directly through FEMA. And we were going to work with the hospitals, and it was also decided that it would be better for the hospitals to work or to go through OHA. So we had already had this in the budget. We're just going to plan to leave it there for now. The only way you would be able to spend money out of here is if you received money out of here. At this point in time, we don't anticipate anything changing back But again, as COVID continues to evolve, it's our intention to just leave it here. If nothing happens, then this would become an inactive fund in the next year, and it would be utilized.
Commissioner Webb.
I didn't hear the end of what you said. What would happen to it ultimately?
It would just become inactive. A fund that doesn't have any expenditures or revenues that happen in it is considered an inactive fund, and so we would just inactivate it and it would go away. It's not that we aren't receiving federal funding, it's just happening through the state through OHA, and so then it's going into the health department directly.
Our health department?
Yes.
So the $1 million that's represented here under funding sources is theoretical, but not actual.
Yeah, it was based on early on when we were talking with FEMA and the potential that we would be applying for reimbursements either for the county ourselves or for the hospitals for costs associated with the vaccination and the testing and the wraparound. But as we were going through this process, it was decided it would be best if we just contracted directly with OHA, and so we won't be working with the hospitals, they'll be working with OHA, and we won't be dealing with FEMA, we'll just be dealing with OHA.
So I guess, is there a reason why this fund still exists? If like if we're not using it and it'll disappear eventually anyway.
We can abolish it at the approved level if you'd like to do that.
All right. Any other questions or discussion on PA COVID-19? Okay, not hearing any contingency COVID, which is the next item. It's labeled appropriations for contingency 90, I think, in the
yeah, and this is based on, as I mentioned before, if depending on how we receive those American Rescue Act monies, we're anticipating that we're going to receive 50% in the current fiscal year of 2021. And then if we receive those other monies, they would go into contingency because we have until December of 2024 to spend the rest of those funds.
Mm-hmm.
Monica, I'm maybe not understanding it. For my copy anyway, the funding sources line seems blank.
Yeah, I will have to talk to IT in regards to that, what's going on there.
Okay, that's just a Scrivener's error kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, what would typically happen is that it would say beginning balance in that line item, but you don't budget for beginning balance and contingency because it's in the other 4 units within the fund.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments on appropriations for contingency 90? I'm not seeing any. So insurance reserve, 389.
So this is, we have a good, sorry, my brain is fried. SAFE is our workers' comp insurance company, and we have done well in the past where we receive a dividend. Those dividends can go away at any point in time, so we don't budget for them, but we do receive them. What we then do with those monies is we use them to help offset some of our insurance payments so that we don't see as great of an increase in our insurance costs by paying for some of those lesser insurance reimbursement or insurance claims we pay directly out of here.
Okay, thank you, Monica. Any questions on insurance reserve? Okay, debt service, 391.
So this is where we pay for we currently have a loan for the remodel of the parole and probation and sheriff's office. And then this is also where we pay for our current jail bond out of, and this includes both the principal and the interest payments.
Okay. Any questions from the group on debt service? Okay, not hearing any. I think, oh, Commissioner Webb, I see a finger there.
Yeah, I just wondered in terms of the debt service annual costs, it fluctuates kind of wildly. I mean, is it, this is jail bonds, right?
It's jail bonds as well as the sheriff's office parole and probation remodel loan that we had. And
Okay.
so,
Commissioner, sorry, Monica, just to make sure on 393, there's an itemized list that actually breaks it down a bit that might help the fluctuation explanation a bit.
Oh, it certainly does. Certainly does. Okay, so will since we're in the construction phase now, these are these bonds that cover both A&E and construction and long-term debt?
yes.
So they should stay fairly predictable.
Yes.
We know.
We have our debt payment schedule for the 30 years. And so we know what our final payment is going to be.
Exactly. Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion on debt service? Okay, bond and UAL reserve fund. Next page.
So this is the bond and unfunded liability for the PERS liability for the county that I was referring to. And so the $300,000 that gets transferred in, the only change is that, like I mentioned before, that's going to come from the general fund stabilization account instead of the capital or special projects fund. Back in 1819 is when we paid $1 million, paid down $1 million towards our unfunded liability. It's our goal to get that up to $3 million and then pay again. And so we're working towards that with that annual $300,000 contribution.
Thank you, Monica. Any questions on bond and UAL reserve fund? Okay, I'm not seeing any. And the next item, we've got a little jump. It is county tourism. It is on page 442. 442.
So, as we've mentioned previously in the reading of the budget message, our transient room tax that we anticipated being impacted by COVID has not been impacted by COVID. So we'll have a greater beginning balance in 21-22 than we have in years past because of those excess revenues that we received. This year, the board decided to make a change in how we distribute those funds. So rather than a grant program that we've done in the past where nonprofits apply, we've chosen to contract with the Lower Columbia Tourism Committee to provide us with those services. And then they work on a countywide basis to do the tourism promotion on our behalf. Some of the stuff that we, in addition to the contract with Lower Columbia Tourism Committee, some of the stuff that is also paid out of here, but is not able to be paid for using those transient room tax dollars, it is general fund supported, is the staff time that goes towards managing these transient room permits. And that is a position that is held in assessment and taxation. Some of the other costs that we are proposing to be paid out of here is in the board's strategic plan. There is a goal of a leave no trace tourism. And so we are budgeting funds to address that, which was one of the environmental quality goals. And then there's also funding to to address another strategic planning goal, which was fire education for those who are coming into our communities. So those are budgeted. And then we also, there's a transfer of 97,000, and that 97,000 is going into special projects. And that is to pay for the construction of the 2 restrooms, one at Clutchie Creek Park and one at the Westport Park. And so, any other questions? And then I apologize, there's also funds to provide some financial support to the fairgrounds for, they continue to promote in the Portland Metro and beyond areas to try and advertise our fairgrounds as an event space for weddings or family gatherings and such.
Good,
Thank you, Monica. Any questions on county tourism? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So now to capital projects. We're on page 457 for special projects fund.
So I'm going to suggest that you turn to page 461. And on that page is a breakdown of all the requests and what is being proposed by departments and what it is that they're asking for. So rather than looking at the lump sum line item, because things such as structures and improvements gets kind of lumped into there. So in that, you're going to see the county is budgeting for, again, some of those strategic planning items, such as a space feasibility study. And that will include not just what we're going to do in regards to our buildings that we currently occupy, but what will be the future, potential future use of the existing jail that will be no longer utilized as a jail. And then also we have budgeted for performance measures and benchmarking, affordable housing, internet broadband, coastal emergency communications, and then we have a significant portion of that, of what is budgeted is the ongoing construction of the jail. And then we have some continued work in regards to the code modernization plan. And then there's, again, from the strategic plan, the environmental quality action team. We've budgeted funds there as well. There's also some funds budgeted, sorry, I skipped over it, for a new phone system upgrade. Our phone systems are on a VoIP system, and that technology starts to cause problems. And when we last replaced our phone system, we waited longer than we should have, and we were running into issues where calls were getting dropped. So we're anticipating to make the change prior to starting to have those issues, because we are at the end of our expected life cycle of the phone. And then just again, we have some security upgrades. I know that Chair Davis mentioned this yesterday, but we are budgeting in the community development department some security upgrades, as well as in the health department and the DA's office. The DA's office might also depend upon, we are part of that space feasibility study is, and then the overall courthouse security work that we're doing is looking at that single point of entrance. If we reduce that single point of, reduce things to that single point of entrance, and then individuals are walking through a body scanner, then the likelihood of needing to make things more secure everywhere else in the courthouse is lessened. And so we'll be evaluating that as we go through that process. And then there's just some ongoing maintenance issues of our existing facilities, since they are aging, and continuing to make sure that we're taking care of them for longevity purposes. There's also some vehicle purchases for the sheriff's department and the juvenile department. There is a significant expense in the parks department. Again, we have the bathrooms that are budgeted there, and then the Westport boat ramp and dock project that is budgeted for there. I will note, because it came up yesterday, but it is future projects are in the right-hand column of things that are being requested for the following fiscal year. And so, again, that is the breakdown of the special projects. We also pay for indirect costs out of here. And so those are the costs that carry forward onto the next page.
Thank you, Monica. So Commissioner Thompson, I saw a hand, and then Commissioner Webb. Oh, no, you canceled on that one. Okay. Commissioner Webb.
Yeah, these look like very conservative numbers to me. Was there any effort to get, I mean, I noticed that just some of them were just pushed out to a few years in time, but I think especially in the county manager's office, I'm really glad that we went to the 150,000 level, because I think these consultant services are really modest. You know, I just, they look really low to me. But I really like this presentation. I don't remember seeing this in a budget before, but I mean, to me, this is about as close as we ever get to a long-term capital program, which I think every municipality needs to have. And we've just been through something at NOAA, which I plan on sharing with the county manager, where we brought in a consultant to take a look at every one of the facilities that we owned and predict out for the next 50 years replacement issues in each building. And it was fabulous. Unfortunately, it means that we need to come up with about $10 million in the next 2 years, which we don't know where we're going to get it. But it was a really terrific study that took a long-term look at our capital needs, and actually at our capital needs for existing properties, not necessarily for things. And I just loved it. I thought it was really, really informative. And I'm going to pass that on. But kudos, because as I say, the closer we get to something that looks like a capital budget to me, the happier I am. So thank you.
Any other questions or discussion on special projects? Monica, I also like this presentation. I might request that the headings for requested and proposed include the years like they do in the other budgets, just to make it clear that that's the current budget cycle. And if possible, parts of my copy anyway are cut off because they're cut in the 3-ring binder. If it's possible to shrink the margin a bit. I know there's a lot on this page, so I know that's a tough ask. But
We've run into that problem because then we start to cut off some of the explanation of what the projects are. And
Sure.
So, yeah, we'll continue to try and make it so that it's still big enough that you can read it, but
yeah. I know that's a hassle, and you have my sympathy. I'd like to read the word courthouse if it's a courthouse window replacement.
Yeah.
Any other discussion for the group on special projects? Okay, not seeing any. Fleet replacement, 476.
So this fleet replacement is typically where budget for some departments that set aside, including assessment and taxation and building codes. Building codes this year, as previously mentioned, are not planning to make any purchases in the current or in the 21-22 fiscal year. And they're not proposing to transfer any revenues. They try to show the true cost within their departments. And so when they are making that transfer from the building codes department into the fleet replacement department, it is based on mileage of their vehicles driven. And since they really didn't have as many miles as they typically have in the past, they didn't feel that transferring any revenue is showing a true cost because there wasn't that cost because of the COVID pandemic. So they're not proposing any transfers in the next fiscal year, and there are no car purchases that are being budgeted out of this work unit for the next fiscal year.
Okay. Any questions or discussion on fleet replacement? Monica, I'm sorry I'm asking you for formatting things. So in this particular instance, I really wanted to look at the building code budget to see what the change was. It'd be really awesome if there was after it in the line that says transfer for building codes, for example, in funding sources, if it gave me a page and a fund number so that I could look quickly and see, how that changed the dynamic in that department.
Yeah, I would have to put that in the department overview because the funding sources, we're not able to really edit those. It's all part of the financial software, but I could put it in the department overview.
I think it would be helpful anyway. Thank you. Any other discussion on fleet replacement? Okay, inactive budgets.
And those are just like I mentioned in regards to what would happen with the COVID-19 PA budget is those are budgets that are still showing some history or that we haven't completely inactivated just because they have a potential to be utilized again in some way. So for instance, we have the corrections work through budget. While there is still 3-year history showing there, and depending on what happens with when we move to the new jail, if there is the ability and the capacity within the sheriff's office to bring back the corrections work through, that's something that we would like to be able to do. So we're not completely removing this 4 unit.
Yeah, and that FYI, that's on 525 is where that's starting if anyone's wanting to find those three funds. Any questions or comments on those 3? Okay. Then we have a space now for public comment. It is stated in the agenda that this is public comment with a 5-minute timeline for each comment. If there's anyone from the public who wishes to enter comment for the budget cycle this year, we would love to hear from you at this time. Is there any public comment? One last call. Any public comment? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone coming off of mute or hands or anything, so I'll take that as a no. So we're at the stage where someone can make a motion to approve the budget, is my understanding. Approve the budget for this, is it tentative approval from this committee to be passed to the county commission?
It's approval from this committee to be then moved on to the Board of Commissioners for adoption on June 9th. Teresa, if I can ask if I could have screen share just so I can highlight the changes that we have discussed throughout the last few days.
Yes, just a moment, please.
Thanks, Monica.
Okay, can you all see my screen?
I can see it, Monica. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. So I apologize, I don't have it on the first page because I've been making edits as we go along. So let me get back to the. Okay. So the first change that is being proposed is that was proposed was in the Animal Shelter Enhancement Fund on page 201. It was showing a cost of $14,000 for structures and improvements. And as mentioned at the time, that is going to be paid for out of the Animal Shelter or Animal Control Division's budget. And so the actual proposed budget would only be $427,390. in the public health fund.
I'm sorry, Monica. Teresa, could you mute, please? I think that's who I just got background noise from. I just want to make sure all this is clear for folks. Maybe.
Teresa, are you at your desk to mute yourself? Oh, there we go. Okay, so in the public health fund, we mentioned that we were getting that additional funding for COVID response. And so there is a proposal of an additional $209,890. So that would increase that budget to $226,950. And then also for the program element to have testing and active monitoring for the COVID response, that addition of $789,070, which would increase that budget to $984,600. What was also discussed was there were unapportioned projects that were budgeted in line items within the health department, and those were also budgeted in contingency, which is where they should remain or where they should be unless needed. And then there was that beginning balance showing up in the contingency, which shouldn't be there because those revenues are already recognized as the fund as a whole. So those adjustments have been made. And this is just a reminder in regards to contingency funds. And so when there are contingency funds, each fund, such as the public health fund, has a separate contingency from other funds because they're dedicated monies. And so we couldn't use these contingencies or reserves within another fund because they're kind of like separate businesses. Those aren't their monies, so they can't touch them. Even within the public health department, these monies that are allocated into each of these contingencies, the 4112, the 4133, those are specific to that org unit and the program services that they're providing. So you couldn't take some of that 4170, that 242,000, and give some of it to 4168 because it is specific to the types of program services that are being provided.
Monica, can I ask you to go back a page for a second?
Yeah. Further back than this?
Yeah, sorry, to the first slide.
That's okay. The very first one?
I'm taking this as the first. This is the one I wanted to see anyway.
Okay.
So, so on 285, you know, that's emergency preparedness budget, and I think, right?
Yes.
Can you describe, is that proposed money, is that coming from general fund? What's the revenue source for that?
When we were meeting yesterday, we received after the budget had already been established and started to work on for print. We received information that we were going to be receiving additional money for active monitoring. And so that is that 789,000 for active monitoring of COVID and being able to provide equitable testing and vaccinations. And so that is what first the 209,000 is for the vaccination piece, and then the 789,000 piece is for the active monitoring.
So that will go into the COVID-19 local active monitoring line item on 282?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Member Davis.
On this same slide, we had talked about how the animal shelter reports its income from CAA. And I thought you were going to make a note for future on this. I don't see it here.
What I'm going to be doing is updating in the budget highlight, because these aren't monies that we appropriate for. So what I'm going to do is the undersheriff and the animal control supervisor are working up the information in regards to how much they spent in the past and how much on average they spend and what types of services they contribute towards, and that will go in the budget highlight.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'd like to see a comment there regarding that. Thank you. Because it is on CAA's website that they give this money to the shelter.
Yes, and it will be in the budget highlights. These proposed changes are strictly monetary because so that you know, so that we are able to know what the budget is being approved at for appropriation authority.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Webb, did you come off mute for a comment?
Yeah, I guess I I'm not, never mind. Never mind.
Okay, thank you. Monica, I think you can go ahead then to the third slide.
So this is the transfers to other funds. As I just mentioned, that there's a reduction of 27,450, and this is so that it ties to the amount that the Public Health Department is showing as incoming revenue for transfers in. So that has been adjusted to 1,056,800. And then these two, the parks maintenance and the parks and land acquisition, go together. As mentioned yesterday, historically for a number of years, the transfer amount has been $45,000, the amount that gets transferred from the park and land acquisition fund to the parks maintenance fund to help contribute towards the maintenance of these parks. Because we have these additional parks costs that are going to be coming on and the additional FTE, we proposed to increase that amount to 5,000, or increase that amount by 5,000. So the transfer in for revenue for parks maintenance will show as 50,000, and the expense on the parks and land acquisition side will also show as 50,000. So in regards to some changes that came up today, we discussed increasing the Board of Commissioners budget for a stipend increase, and based on the information that was stated, that increase will be approximately $20,000, and so that will increase the total proposed budget to $148,660. We discussed increasing the county manager's budget by $150,000, and that's to be included for either one FTE and or contractual services to enhance community relations and or grant writing. And so that would be a total budget of $1,090,630. And then removal of the org unit PA COVID-19 in the amount of $1 million. So the final act that your committee has is approval of the budget with a tax rate of 1.5338 per 1,000 and 0.07 per 1,000 for the Fairgrounds local option. And then also approving the total levy for bonded indebtedness, which is to pay for the jail bond in the amount of $1,404,940.
Is there any discussion, or would anyone like to make a motion to match this approval of the budget? Member Davis, you're coming off mute anyway.
Oh, I move we approve the budget.
Can you, for the sake of procedural hurdles, can you essentially read out the statement that's on the screen to make sure that we get the right tax rate, et cetera?
Yes. I move that we approve the budget. Approval of the budget with a tax rate of 1.5338 per 1,000 and not 0.07 per 1,000 for the Fairgrounds local option. Total levy for the bonded indebtedness of $1,404,940.
Is there a
And I will
second?
second that.
Okay, thank you. I've got a motion and a second to approve the budget with a tax rate of 1.5338 per $1,000 and 0.07 per $1,000 for the Fairgrounds local option, and a total levy for bonded indebtedness of $1,404,940. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, I'm not seeing any discussion. I will say just for my part of discussion here, Monica, thank you for your service and work on this budget this year. I'm always impressed by your exhaustive knowledge of the whole budget and your ability to deliver it to us in a professional and even-handed manner. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion from the group? Let me go
So
around
the
and
only other comments that I would have, Andy, is we will have to work out your signature of the minutes that were approved.
Okay.
And I would just add that the this budget will be going before the board for the public hearing and the adoption on June 9th at the 6 p.m. meeting.
Thank you, Monica. Let me make sure we get a vote in on this budget. Let me go around the room and do that. Chair Quila, how do you vote on the budget? Thank you.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Bangs, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Webb, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Toyuka, are you on the phone line perhaps? Okay. Member Montero, how do you vote?
Aye.
Member Davis, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Member Allen, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, by the vote of this commission, the budget is approved. Thank you all. Monica, do you have any final business to handle before we adjourn?
I do not. We just a reminder to the board that we have put the notice in for the road district budget committee meeting to be on Friday, the 21st at 4 p.m.
Thank you, Monica. Well, for closing remarks, I just want to thank the commissioners and staff and the members of the lay members of the committee for your time and work on this. This is a long process, and I know that it can be kind of exhausting, but you all stuck it out, and I, as chair, very much appreciate it. So thank you for that.
Thank you all for your service.
And I'd echo Chair Davis's comments. I also want to thank Chair Davis for his leadership throughout the process. Great job. And thank you for your time and effort.
Well done, Andy.
Absolutely.
Well, without objection, we can all be adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you.